Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Tuesday 10 with CadChica Sports. I am your host, Sunny Cadwallader. Tuesday 10 is a quick 10-minute chat with leaders and up-and-comers in the world of sports, from media, broadcasting, business marketing, social media, and more. Now, before I bring on my guest, I want to make sure everyone stays tuned in to the end of the show when I will be announcing a very, very special guest. Well, special to me, special guest for next week's show. But without further ado, let me bring in my guest, Troy Kirby. Hey, Troy, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I am doing wonderful tonight. Someone who used to live in my neck of the woods, so I'm glad we connected. I'm glad I could have you on. Why don't you give everybody a quick bio about yourself?
You know, first of all, still say it's seriously bizarre that you and I did not interact at some point because I was there for collectively 8 years, both going to college and then also working as a ticket manager there for my alma mater, Eastern Washington University. But, you know, it's good to talk to you this way. It just fascinates me to no end the fact that we can do this kind of stuff because I never would have thought it back when I was a kid. I will say that I've worked in sports probably about 9 to 10 years. Started out actually at the Spokane Shadow, which was run by Brett Sports, and
wow,
which is the soccer team that beyond all soccer teams that played at Joe Albi Stadium, one of the few places where you could actually see people running on AstroTurf and sliding in the middle of summer. And the reason I got that job was working at the student newspaper, picked up the phone. The SID Dave Cook at Eastern had said, hey, we're looking for somebody to work at the Spokane Shadow as a PR director and account executive, and it kind of started me on that way of kind of even thinking about it because at that time didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was kind of a non-traditional student, so went from there, then also worked for Dave Cook as a graduate assistant at Sports Information, went back to Seattle University, who was starting their graduate degree program. Seattle University had the best experience I could ever have, which was working at D2, and they just said, go for it. So I became the sports information graduate assistant as Jason Behenna, the sports information director, now is obligated to say I am the greatest sports information graduate assistant ever, but because he is under contract. But also learned about tickets there, did a lot of things because nobody else would answer the phone. So it was a lot of opportunity. Became the ticket manager there, transitioned to Eastern, and now I'm down at UC Davis. And then, of course, I have a little podcast called The Tao of Sports, which will have its 350th episode tomorrow with Danielle Mayhew of McNeese State. So, I couldn't ask for a better guest. Yes, I could not ask for a better guest, and that's the best part.
And well, be sure to make sure you put in all the links on the events page here on Google Plus so that everybody knows how to connect with you and to tune into that 350th episode. So you definitely know your stuff when it comes to podcasts. You know your stuff when it comes to business in the sports community, in college sports, utilizing social media, which brings me to my first question, and it actually has to do with something you wrote. One of our audience members, you recently wrote something about sketching, utilizing a promotional plan. She wants to know of any sports organizations that have successfully run a social media day event as part of their promotional strategies. But I want you to, I'll let you take up on that question.
Well, I'm not from, say, the marketing side in the sense that I know every single marketing thing that's been out there. I've certainly seen them with the same passing interest anybody else has. I do think it comes down to the understanding of the medium. I think a lot of times people throw out, hey, we're just going to put Twitter handles on the back of jerseys. I don't know if that necessarily makes a social media night, just like saying I want to have a singles night and then having 4 or 5 random people show up is really a singles night. It really depends on how much investment you're going to put in. And I think social media, the problem with social media in terms of a lot of sports teams is, and this is something that I think that people out there in social media will agree with, unfortunately a lot of teams still think it's free. It's not free. You have to invest in it. You actually have to have social media folks that are invested, that are doing all this stuff. And the problem is that when we see something for free, or what we conceive as for free, we tend to not value it. So therefore, it goes on to my free tickets tirade that I'll always have. But honestly, any type of social media event, a lot of times when they doing stuff on social media or having some type of event, they tend to kind of think that just the big announcement and the big broadcast is enough, which is where that sketching kind of promotions early idea comes from. Unfortunately, a lot of people wait until the end of the season or wait till they're almost at the start of the season before they even begin to think about what are we going to do this year that's a little different. And you can't do any more bobblehead nights. You can't do a lot of the other stuff. The silver bullets are kind of gone. So I think that's where we have a lot of people that have misconstrued the idea of what a marketer does, and part of that is understanding and really gaining a basis for what medium they're talking about. If you're going to do something with mascots, you better be really good at doing that with mascots. If you're going to do it with social media, you better be really good at doing it with social media. Unfortunately, we have, and I think this is kind of unfortunate, that we have the type of people that will throw out an idea but never put the implementation or backing behind it, and then it looks like really it failed, and then they go, well, it failed, so we tried it once, so we never have to try it again. How about we try doing it successfully and successfully planned?
There you go. How do you see, because you work in the area of college sports, how do you see social media continuing to evolve and change in the college sports fraternity, especially with yours at UC Davis?
I actually think that social media in general has a great opportunity more at college, I think, sometimes than it has in the pros. Yeah. Because in the pros, they tend to just think about it in terms of, we're transitioning revenue. And while that's great, and I'm Mr. Revenue, I do think there is some experimental stuff that you do get to do at the college game that's more of the, the marketers and the memes and all of the type of stuff that I don't think the pros really have time for or want to do as much. When they're looking at a video, they're looking at every single time it's got to hit 44 million people or whatever. I think colleges sometimes experiment and throw things at the wall. I'm not saying that every single time that you don't make revenue, that's a great thing, because I would love to make more money. I do think that that's the end all. But at the same time, when you have young kids, especially as interns or graduate assistants, who are able to be facilitated, I think sometimes it kind of changes the game. Some of the things that the pros have taken have come from the college game, just in general. I think that when you look at mascots were traditionally a college game, and they've moved more to the pro side. The Boston Red Sox actually tried to wheel out a mascot. That's a good example of how you shouldn't do it. They tried to just have the Green Monster, which is this dragon type thing, come out, and they had it come out during one of the games a few years ago. The only problem with that is they are Boston fans, so they booed. You just have to understand your base and kind of your medium and how you're going forward. They kind of figured out some of those problems, but even the Cubs just kind of made a mascot originally. They'd had the mascot, but they never actually had it like kind of immortalized. So it just depends on kind of what you're willing to do. But I think colleges sometimes, even though sometimes colleges will take things and they won't do crazy promotions, or they won't do things that tend to, they're worried about offending some professor you've never met. Pros sometimes hold back on some of the things they could do.
Yeah. Well, let me do a quick screen share because there was one topic that I wanted to bring up, and I'm still not proficient with this whole screen sharing thing, so bear with me just a minute. There was an article recently in Forbes talking about the Los Angeles Kings. Can you see that article, Troy?
Yes.
Shifting their business strategy. And I know you're all about revenue and ticket sales, but they're shifting their strategy from the sales part to the actual engagement part. And I just kind of wanted to get your opinion on that type of mindset. And is that something that is exclusive to the Kings because of their success? Winning brings in people, or is that something that we're going to start seeing more of?
Well, I actually think that while they're saying fan engagement, it still comes back to what they're now creating. If you look at the Phoenix Suns, the San Diego Padres, there's some minor league teams that are starting it, and what that's really called is really kind of fan membership. Fan membership is a European model. It's more of a model that you'll see in Australia or places, in Oceania. Fan membership does not use a transactional model in the same way that season tickets do. Season tickets you renew every year. A membership you might have for a lifetime, it's passed down. There's a famous story that's now there's a lawyer that's in Australia, and this shows how crazy fan memberships can get because they don't sell anymore. His client died about 16 years ago, and he just kept the guy's fan membership. So now he's basically held for fraud or whatever. But he paid into it. But those types of things, they're really, and it's a different kind of thing, because if you're going to other places, it's more of a stewardship model. Sometimes I think that's something that pro model here in the United States has lost. Seattle Sonics left town. I was a passionate Sonics fan. I'll always be for life. But I'm now in a fraternity with people who are baseball fans in Brooklyn, or football fans in Los Angeles.
LA,
yeah, and really, I don't feel that same stewardship passion that I might have had it been something of the same ilk. And I think that's where the fan memberships have kind of the problem with the NBA model that they have now with the Suns or with some of the other teams that are starting it. They're merely calling it fan membership, but they haven't gone the full Monty. They've done some parties, they've done some other things, but they really haven't gone that full length. And when they do, I think they'll catch up to something like with what the LA Kings are doing, because the LA Kings whole thing with the fan engagement is really along the same lines. Now, they don't have the same parties or the same activities that are year-round, but they're always saying, Sonny, I really want you to be a part of what we're doing. Hey, Sonny, check this out. Sonny, I care about you. And that's a little different than some of the other activities that have happened in the past. Sure, some of the things have been transactional and our types of sales, but honestly, I think that it matters to what we're actually going to do, long term, to make sure that we have ticket sales or people in our buildings, because the HD model is really starting to look at eroding exactly what we do.
Well, we've reached the end of the show, but I did want to bring in this comment. Debbie was thanking you for answering that first question. Carrie G. Butler is tuning in. Free things don't always work as intended. And boy, do we know that. They draw, but they don't keep. And Cheryl, hey Cheryl, she and her husband Dennis were discussing that Los Angeles Kings article and stirred up some good discussion. So thanks everyone for joining in on the comments. And thanks, Troy, for joining me on the show. Why don't you let everybody know where they can connect up with you?
Sportsdow.com, or my Twitter handle, which is down there, Sportsdow. You can also find out I'll be in San Diego this Thursday for a conference. I'll be in Australia for late June, early July for the Sports Fan Conference. I don't expect some of you to come there, but Las Vegas, Chicago, and Kansas City. So there's various stuff, and you can find it on my website. But thank you very much, Sonny. I'm very impressed with what you've done, and I expect a lot of stuff in the future as far as where you're going with this.
Thanks, and make sure you add, and Troy, make sure you add all the links to your appearances on the Google Plus events page as well, so people can stay following what all the places that you're going to be speaking at. And are you going to be back up in my area in August for a very huge Eastern Washington game by any chance?
Unfortunately, I have my own commitments, but I'll be there. Here's the funny thing, though. So Eastern Washington's playing Sam Houston State, right?
Yes.
So I'm an Eastern Washington alum. My boss, my direct supervisor who hired me, is a Sam Houston State alum. So every single year now there seems to be a little critique, and I now have to get back the Eastern magic, because we did lose, in that first sloppy game to them. So I'm expecting that, we'll take it this time, and I'm more than thrilled at the red turf and everything that's happened, because when I was there when it started, everyone said it wouldn't match the track or whatever, and to be honest with you, it helped sell more tickets than anything else.
It looks great. Once you see the red turf and you're watching the game, you forget about it after a while. Anyways, thanks, Troy, for joining the show. Connect with me here on Google plus Sonny Cadwallader. Yes, that is pronounced Cadwallader. Connect with me on Twitter and Instagram at CadChica, and always check out the latest blog post coming to you from the sports social media world at CadChicaSports.com. And as I mentioned in the beginning of the show, a very special guest next week, and I know Cheryl Deuce and Debbie Davis are already excited about this, or they will be excited about this. If you read my blog post pre-show, you already know who the special guest is. The special guest is going to be me. I am going to be the special guest next week, so as soon as I set up the events page, get your any question you ever wanted to ask me. Now will be the one and only time that you get to do it. Get to know CadChica, who I am, what I like, what I don't like. I'm just about anything will go in these questions, and if it's a failure, then I'm never doing it again, but it'll be the one time that you can make me your special guest. So thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next week.